It's good to have you with us, and I hope I'll be able to convince you of the value of embracing entrepreneurship. In the lineup today, I want to take you through a couple of things. The entrepreneurial decision. Why would we take an entrepreneurial decision? Okay. I'm going to look specifically at the emergence of what we call the New World Order. Okay, and the conflicts and the challenges that pose to us as entrepreneurs, as individuals. I'm going to take you through a couple of notions in terms of the perception of the challenge and how you can develop your capacity in responding to the challenge. And I'll close with a little bit of a rationale why entrepreneurship in the MBA program. Okay? Of course, at the end, you'll have an opportunity to ask me any questions, and you can interrupt me as we go along. I'd be happy to take your questions. All right, if we look around us today, and I look in the classroom here, I can see, everybody here is probably at least 18, maybe 19, right? There's a lot of experience around us. What's happening in our world today? Well, we're confronted with a world that's increasingly globalized. Lots of globalization. What we do in the city of Lyon can impact an industry in Indonesia. What is manufactured in Thailand would be used in a manufacturing process in Berlin. Okay? Increasingly, the notion of the world is shrinking. Right? We're no longer being separated by barriers and borders. Those are collapsing. In addition, there's a mechanism that's making all this possible. That mechanism is called technology. Increasingly, our world is what we call a TEI, a technology-enabled environment. All right? We're living in an increasingly globalized world and an increasingly technology-enabled world. As a result, business as we knew it is changing. All right? What's happening? Well, what we see are a number of circles, the vortexes as we like to call them, that's taking place. As the globalization and the technology keep interacting, the speed at which they interact is increasing. As a result, the way businesses operate today is changing. Many of you remember the time when if you wanted to wire money to someone in some other part of the world, you had to go to the bank. Today you can sit at home on your cell phone and you can purchase something in Australia and have it delivered to you in the United States. I can pay a colleague in Hong Kong without going to the bank. All right? So as the globalization and the technology interaction increases, there are lots and lots of changes that's affecting our environment. Of those changes, what we see, there is an increasing interdependence between the components of society. All right? Increasing interdependence. In other words, we are increasingly dependent on each other for the existence of our businesses. In addition, there's greater interconnectivity. All right? One just needs to think about the sell-off of a stock in Frankfurt and the repercussions that would have on the stock exchanges around the world. When there's a share suspension on one particular market, there's a ripple effect in all the other markets. Okay? So there's a lot of interconnectivity. And if we look back to the financial crisis of 2008, we see how technology can accentuate crises. Okay? So we're increasingly interconnected. We have a lot of volatility. A lot of volatility. Markets are no longer secured. Businesses are increasingly being challenged. New competitors are coming along. Traditional customers are being solicited by new competitors. And we see a certain degree of chaos in the environment. There's a certain degree of chaos. When we hear the word chaos, we often think of, well, their challenges, their problems, right? I remember a couple of years ago when there was the financial crisis, I saw a little cartoon. The guy went to the cash dispenser to withdraw some money and couldn't get any money out. So he went to the shop next door and he said, "Hey, can you explain to me what happened, why I can't get any money out of here?" And the shop owner told him, "Sir, I don't think it's a problem with your card, but the bank expired." Okay, the bank disappeared last night. So imagine waking up one morning and your customer base has disappeared. Okay, the order you had been hoping to have no longer exists. All right, so there's a lot of chaos. Somebody came along and took away your competitor, your customer. There's also an increasing degree of turbulence. In other words, the guarantees we had in the traditional mindset of businesses are no longer guarantees. Companies are being forced to continually redefine their value propositions in order to maintain their customers. Okay? As the competition intensifies, you need to keep redefining your value proposition. There's a higher degree of uncertainty. In the days of our parents, where the forecasting, the stability of the environment was identified and known, today there is no more stability. Or the notion of stability has changed because it's become shorter. Okay, so there's increasing issues in terms of uncertainty. Okay. And with that comes the insecurity. All right. Because we are no longer sure of what our tomorrows will be like. So in this environment, we see a lot of disruption. New ways of doing businesses. New products and services. New technologies. All right. New markets. New access to markets. Okay. Traditional established players are being challenged by new upstarts. Okay? Disruption. So how do we respond to this environment? How do we respond? Well, a couple of us may be dismayed. Some people may be dismayed. This is daunting. This is intimidating. This is not for us. Others may see it differently. They may see it as a challenge. They may see it as a challenge. Why? Why do we see it this way? Well, in some opinions, the glass is half empty. All right? Problems, glass is half empty. For others, the glass is half full. Okay? Now, I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay? If you're a manager, what do you think would be the typical answer from a manager? And I'm going to pick on the managers in the crowd here. What would be the typical answer of a manager when you see that kind of a problem? Anybody wants to guess? Anybody's courageous enough to guess? All right. Standard answer. It's not my fault. All right? It's not my fault if the glass is wrong. Okay? It's not my fault. How many of you are engineers here? Raise your hand. Oh, good. All right. What do you think the engineers say?
How to fix.
How to fix? How to fix the glass? Anybody else? What do the engineers say? Come on.
There are problems and we need to find the solution.
Could be, right? Anything else? How about this? The glass is twice as big as it needs to be. All right? The glass is twice as big as it needs to be. Okay. How many of you here are entrepreneurs? Raise your hand. Any entrepreneurs? Good. All right. Guess who I'm turning to next?
What can be done?
Who's the next the question for? All right. So what the entrepreneur said, what can be done? Good. What else?
How to make it full.
How to make it full? Good. Anybody else? Anybody wants to take a shot at it? Opportunity to fill the glass. Good. To drink from the glass. Okay. All right.
Dream, I think.
To drink. Drink. Okay. Here's what I think one of us would say. While you were having that debate about whether the glass is full or empty, I sold it. Okay? While you're having that debate, I sold it. Okay. But more seriously, what is the issue? We ask ourselves, is this the right environment for entrepreneurship? Would you want to get involved in entrepreneurship in this environment? Full of turbulence, full of uncertainty, full of insecurity, full of chaos, full of disruption. Would you want to be an entrepreneur in this environment? Yes or no? If I haven't scared you enough, yeah.
If you think you can be the disruptive force, why not?
If you think you can be a disruptive force, okay, good. What else?
I personally come from the insurance industry, so for me, all the things like that,
You're right.
can make margins.
Make margins. Anybody else? Who would choose to be an entrepreneur in this environment? Come on.
Because it's easier to be a newcomer in any situation when there is chaos and uncertainty,
Right.
rather than to be a newcomer in a stable situation where already established actors can take care of an intruder.
Right. So you're going to go eat market share. You're going to take away market share.
Either that or propose something that capture the clients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good. Anybody else?
And in a world of chaos, you're allowed to fail.
In a world of case, you're allowed to fail. Okay. Great. Anything else? Who would want to be an entrepreneur in this environment?
Capitals are no longer secure as they are, so they may be more available to start something new.
Right. Okay. Who would not want to be an entrepreneur? So, because the rest of you didn't raise your hands, I'm guessing the answer by deduction is that you would not want to be an entrepreneur. Huh?
It's a problem of decision making
Decision making. Right?
with all the parameters of disruption, uncertainty. We need to see figures to see.
We need to see.
Yeah.
Okay. What about those who are contemplating, who are thinking? Who would want to be an entrepreneur in this environment?
There is maybe a third position.
What's this? The debate?
No, it's to bet on the strongest. because it's it's a Darwinian situation where you might think that the strongest will emerge, so you can put your efforts with the stronger.
Right. Darwinian. Okay, can we just pick up on that point a little bit more? Everybody's familiar with the Darwin principle? All right, it's not the strongest that will survive, but say that again? The one that adapts the most. Right. Okay. So I'd like to help you to answer that question. Do you take the entrepreneurial decision? All right. And I will do so by evoking two key points with you. The first one is the perception. All right. How do you perceive this environment for entrepreneurship? The second one looks at your capacity, your entrepreneurial capacity, your entrepreneurial capability. All right. There are lots of parameters that we can explore, but I like to focus on those two. All right. Because as an educator, our job is to help change perception. Our job is to empower you to help you change your perception. Okay? Our job is to improve your capabilities and your capacity for entrepreneurship. Okay? That's our job. It's our mission as education entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial educators. That's our mission. Okay? And we know that it's still a personal decision at the end of the day. But if we can increase your perception and your capacity, maybe we are making the decision to get you one step closer to being an entrepreneur. Okay? That's what we try to do. To get you to one step closer to being an entrepreneur. Okay, so what really is the first issue? The notion of perception. All right. How is it, why is it that we perceive things very differently? Well, in this environment, some of us will see it as a threat. Okay? For lots of reasons, we have our personal security reasons. We're a little more established, we're a little more experienced, we have different responsibilities. We look at the risks involved in taking the decision. We weigh the pros and cons of the decision. Okay? So some see it as a threat. Others may see it as an opportunity. And very often what we see as the potential from the guys who've been established in business, who've got a lot of business experience and knowledge, who know their industries, they know what are the problems within those industries and are probably able to propose new solutions. So for a lot of managers, it is also an opportunity, okay, to branch out, to reach out, to create new enterprises. The reason we see it the way we see it is how we frame the reality. How we frame reality. And we frame our realities according to multiple perspectives. The way we're educated, the things we've been exposed to, our experience, even our own expectations. Right? So our perception, our reality is framed by all of these dimensions. And when you come to an educational institution and you enroll in a program, we try to help change these perspectives. Okay? We try to help change those perspectives. And the reason we want to do so is that we'd like to help you achieve an ambition. All right? So, you've built up your experience over the years, and you take an MBA degree within a year or two, and we try to change what you've had before. Okay? So there's a little bit of a challenge, an uphill challenge involved. Because while we know you're going to study for a year and a half or 2 years with us, the shift may not be that easy. The shift may not be that easy. Because perception equals reality. Perception equals reality. So if you perceive it negatively, chances are it will be negative. If you perceive it as chaos, chances are it's going to be chaotic. Okay? If you perceive it as a set of opportunities, then maybe you'll be motivated to exploit the opportunity. Right? Perception equals reality. So our mission is that it's not the reality that really shapes you, but the lens which you use that shapes the reality. Okay? It's not the reality that really shapes you. It's not the reality that shapes the mind. It's the lenses we use that shape the world in which we live. Okay, so that's fairly psychologically challenging. Right. So the lenses, we have to change the lenses. So how do we do that? Education. Change the vision. Change the vision. Okay? So if we agree on the conceptual level, when we can both look at the same object, we may see two different sets of things. Okay? Some may see this as the glass. Okay? Others can see it as what? Sorry, coffee?
Carton to be recycled.
Recyclable carton, right? What else? How else can we see this?
Commercial.
Commercial, advertising media, right? What else? A funny hat, right? Okay. So we've got some very interesting ones. Hold on to these guys, right? So we got a cup, could be an advertising material, could be a funny hat. What else? Anything else? How else can we see this cup?
Services.
Services in terms of?
You can bring drinks to people.
A service to bring drinks, okay. What else?
Pencil holder? A pencil holder?
Pencil holder, good. Pencil holder, right. A basket, great, okay. So when you look at the object differently, you see different potentials, okay. And this is what we want you to do in this environment, to see the environment very differently. And we help you to change the vision in a number of ways. You get lots and lots of simulation. Lots and lots of simulation. Okay? We believe in trial and error. We believe in trial and error. We educate to change the vision. Okay? We create mentoring. You will accompany, you will be mentored by, you will be surrounded by like-minded people who will help you to change the vision. Okay? That's what we do. We educate you to help change the perception. So when you enroll in one of our programs, you will be asked to make lots of trials and errors. you will be asked to change your vision of reality. You will be asked to reshape the lenses you use on reality. Because if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I'm sure lots of times you probably have examples of situations where your colleagues, your friends have started businesses and you yourself question their motivation. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Right? Has that ever happened to you? I don't think this is the right time to do it. Sounds familiar? No? You don't know anyone who's been in that situation where you go, oh no, I wouldn't do that if I were him. Yes or no? Of course, we do it all the time. All right? So if we can help you to change the way you look at things, the things you see change. And that's power. That's called empowerment. That's empowerment. Okay? And we empower you because you will not be afraid of the chaos in that environment. You will not be afraid of the uncertainty in the environment. You will not be afraid of the instability in the environment. Okay? If we can help you to change the way you look at things, the way you look at the environment itself changes. Good? Clear on the first point? Yep. All right. Now let's dig a little deeper into this environment. Globally interconnected, globally interdependent. Okay. You look at service level agreements between your supplier in China and your distributor here in France, and you're worried about the shipment, you're worried about the quality, you're worried about delivery schedules. All right. What's the impact of this globally interconnected world? We see new stakeholders and actors, right? New stakeholders. Depending on your industry, you may see new competitors arriving. You may see older established players disappearing. Okay? In Schumpeter's world, there's this notion of creative destruction. Schumpeter is one of the founding fathers of the notion of entrepreneurship. And we talk about creative destructions because there's a life cycle to businesses. So as businesses are born, others will disappear. Okay? We will see lots of new stakeholders coming along. We also see a lot of conflict between systems and processes. Okay? The banking systems are a typical example of conflict. Because even though we're globally connected, we can see that we all don't have the same level of maturity in our systems. Okay? In any given industry, you probably see a number of deficiencies and problems that have not been solved. You can look at in the climate industry, you can look at the pharmaceutical industry, whether you look at, cancer diseases, loads and loads and loads of problems and deficiencies, and things that have not yet been solved. All right? A number of unmet needs. What if I had this type of product or service? I would be able to do what I wanted to do. Okay? We often say that. If I had this type of product, if I had that, if someone had invented that, my problem would be solved. And then there are the emerging needs. And emerging needs a little more challenging to handle because that's data-driven. Data-driven. So when you look at things like big data, data analytics, you try to identify patterns among the individuals that suggest a trend, that suggest a pathway forward, that suggests an emerging need. Okay? And when you're into an emerging need environment, you're probably going to be into what we call a push mode for entrepreneurship, because you are creating the need. Okay? When there's an emerging need, you're into the push mode because you create the need. Okay? When you're dealing with an unmet need in an established market, you're probably into a pull mode because the market exists. All right? Emerging needs, you create the market. An unmet need, the market exists. In the first situation, where the emergent needs, you probably can compete for premium quality, premium services. In the market that already exists, chances are you'll have to compete on price, ultimately, because the markets exist. So you're, on the one hand, you will be creating the market, so you can have the entire market share. On the other hand, you're fighting for market share, which means you have to take market share from the existing players. All right? So now let's look at you, the Intrapreneur. The Intrapreneur. What's this thing called the Intrapreneur? You will look at your environment and say, can I solve any of those problems? Do I have what it takes? Do I have an idea that will solve any of those problems? The Intrapreneur first, okay? So we're starting inside. If I can change what's inside, I can help you to see differently on the outside. Okay? Can I solve any of the problems? Can I satisfy any of those needs? Okay? Can I satisfy any of those needs? So you start that process internally in terms of how I will become an entrepreneur. How will I respond to the challenge of my environment? How will I sort of reach out to those customers that I've identified? All right? So you start the contemplation. We know that ideas don't create businesses. They're essential, they're necessary, but ideas don't create businesses. People create businesses. Entrepreneurs create businesses. Okay? So as you contemplate the decision, will I become the entrepreneur? You're having a dialogue with the Intrapreneur. Okay? You're having this dialogue. And you're going to ask yourself, what is my value proposition? What will I bring to that market? How will I service those customers? How will I respond to those needs? How will I solve the problem? Okay? This is the contemplation. You're talking to the Intrapreneur. More specifically, you will try to answer the question, how will the customers benefit? We know that customers buy products or services not because they exist, but because they solve a problem or they satisfy a need. Okay? People buy products and services because they solve a problem or they satisfy a need. The next question, how will I enter the market and how will I sustain my market share? How will I enter that market and how will I sustain my market share? Okay. So you're looking at this chaos, you're looking at this uncertainty, you're looking at this turbulence. You're seeing industries open, industries consolidate, you're seeing businesses appear, businesses disappear, and you're saying, how do I get into that game? How will I compete? Okay, how will I compete? So the conversation with this entrepreneur really is the result of the dialogue with the intrapreneur. Okay? You're talking to yourself. So let's go into the mind, the entrepreneurial mind. We're in France, so I can say Dupont A, Dupont B without affecting anyone. Okay. Thompson and Thompson, Tom and Jerry. Any favorite cartoon characters? So Dupont, Dupont. Two guys look in the same situation. Dupont A sees the problem. What does Dupont B see? Potential. All right? Remember, you got to change the way you look at things, right? So the first guy says, oh no, this is a problem. The other guy goes, nah. There's something we can do about it. There's a potential there. All right? Next. Dupont A is probably going to say, nah, that's too difficult of a situation. Chances are I'm going to break my nose on it. That will never work. We're going to fail. Will never work. Okay? Very, very, very optimistic, right? It will never work. Guaranteed failure. Dupont B is going to say, well, there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity. We can do something about it. All right. So why does Dupont A see it so differently from Dupont B? Why would I want to encourage my students to become entrepreneurs in the midst of the chaos? Should I just say to them, no, guys, don't do it. Go get a job, be comfortable, be satisfied, or not? Why would I want you to be Dupont Bs? Well, for Dupont A, complexity is a bad thing. Can't handle it, huh? Too much. I've got to think about my customers. I've got to think about my supply chain. I got to think about the bank. I got to think about my loan. I got to think about the the distribution. I need to think about the competition. I need to think of my production. Oh, stop. Okay. For Dupont B, complexity is good. Bring it on, he says. I'll take it. All right. Bring it on. The difference between the two guys is simple. It's a question of risk. The capacity to assume the risk. All right? Capacity for risk. So Dupont A is going to say to me, avoid. You know the red button? You see the red button? Avoid, avoid, avoid. Dupont B is going to say, let me calculate the risks. All right? Because I'm going to take a calculated decision. Dupont A has already taken his decision. He's calculated risk equals 100, don't go. Abort. Okay? Abort. That's the only thing Dupont A sees. Dupont B, because he or she has been able to calculate the risk, is now able to identify how they can mitigate the risk. Okay? How we can mitigate the risk. In other words, while Dupont A will try to avoid the risk, there's some great risk aversion. We don't want to have any risk at all. Dupont B embraces the risk. Okay? And embrace the risk. We accept the risk. So our key challenge, how do we move DuPont A's and help them to become the DuPont B's? So the issue here is what I call the Entrepreneurial Capacity Index, the Intrapreneur Index, my Comfort Zone Index. I don't have the right translation for this in English, but in French, I would probably say the pifomètre and the trouillomètre. Okay? That's where we've got to work on the capacity. Because we need to work on your risk tolerance. How do we help you to be more accepting and embracing of risk? Okay, we're all different. We're never all going to be equal. We're not homogeneous in terms of how we relate to the same degree of chaos. But how do we help you to develop your risk tolerance capacity? How do we get you to develop your market assessment? How to develop the market assessment? Okay? Because you remember, the markets are a set of relationships. Markets are relationships, really. Huh? How do we assess those relationships? How can we mobilize resources? What are resources are required? How will I implement my venture? Okay. How will I implement this venture? And what's my leadership capability? As an entrepreneur, I'm a leader. I lead organizations, I'll probably lead a team. All right. And I have responsibility in society. So what's my leadership capacity? Okay? So we work with you on developing this Entrepreneurial Capacity Index. And we'll help to chart it for you. We'll help to chart it for you. We will help you to identify where you are in terms of your risk tolerance. You know your levels of risk tolerance. Okay? There's the objective approach, there's the subjective approach. Okay? You need to know where you are in terms of that balance. And then one of the goals as part of the educational journey is to increase your capacity on that dimension. Okay? What is it I need to make me more comfortable with risk? How can I better embrace risk? Knowing that I will never have 100% security. Okay? There's no guarantee of security. How do I improve my market assessment capability? Okay. You know, there are varying degrees of, I changed my slides. That's the system. We have this electronic board. So we have the notion of a market. Okay. And the market exists with players, suppliers, customers, distributors, etc. But when you look at your market assessment, you want to change the relationships in the market. You want to change behaviors in the market with your venture, right? In order to attract customers, you've got to change the relationship. Okay? In terms of resource mobilization, we often hear the problem of it's hard to get capital, seed capital, startup capital, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of debate around it. Today, there are wonderful examples of how this problem is a no problem with things like crowdfunding and crowdsourcing And you have ventures that have never made it to market but have raised capital beyond their dreams. Okay? Our implementation capacity, we know it's the people that make businesses, not the idea. So what is it I need to be doing in order to make my venture successful? And then how can I be a better leader? Okay? How can I be a better leader? So when we look at the one hand and we've understood the notion of the perception, how we perceive our environment, and we understand how we can improve your capacity to navigate the environment, we are making progress to help you be an entrepreneur. I'd like to share a couple of examples with you about this. The first one is the assessments. Okay, to get you to an assessment. You've all heard about the red ocean, blue ocean strategies? Yes or no? Yeah, I mean standard management strategy courses, right? Again, red ocean, blue ocean talks about the way we see the environment. You agree? All right? You either compete in existing markets or you create new markets. Oops, I changed it again. All right? You compete in existing markets or you create new markets. You try to beat the competition or you make the competition irrelevant. You explore existing demand or you create and capture new demand. Okay? You make value cost trade-off. You break the value cost trade-off. You align with differentiation or low cost, or you're aligned with differentiation and low cost. Okay? So you're seeing the two sides of the spectrum. All right? So let's look at a couple of examples. You guys have all heard about Netflix? Yeah? A company that was founded in 1997. Two guys, Mark Randolph and Reed Hastings. What was their value proposition? How many of you are Netflix customers? Anybody here? Good. What was their value proposition? Movie when you want?
Where and when?
Where and when? Okay, where and when? My movie?
Adapted to my need. I want to select one movie.
Yeah. Anybody else? What happened before Netflix? What would Blockbusters. Tell me about Blockbusters.
It was the biggest rental movie in the United States. I don't think they ever made it to Europe.
Right.
Made it relevant in a very short time.
Right. Movie rentals. How were they renting movies? What was the system with Blockbusters? All right, I'll tell you because you probably don't have the knowledge. Blockbusters, you rented video cassettes. Okay? You go to an ATM and you select your movie and the cassette comes out. You go home, you look at your movie, then you take it back and you give it back to the ATM, right? If we were to analyze that behavior, what happened? Well, the customer had to go to the ATM, right? Chances are you may have had to stand in line. Okay? So there's a time factor. What would be the biggest disaster for the customer? The movie is not there. Somebody already rented it. Okay? Somebody already rented it. Okay? Because they didn't have, multiple copies of all the movies. All right. Then up came these two guys. They were software engineers. And they thought of the problem. And what did they say?
The movie goes to the customer.
Yes. Change the relationship. Change the relationship. Don't have the customer come to get the movie. Let's send the movie to the customer. Exactly. What's the benefit?
He doesn't have to go out.
It doesn't waste time, right? Doesn't have to go out.
He's sure to get the movie.
Sure to get the movie.
You create a need.
Okay, create a need. Tell me more about that one. I like that one too. Come on.
Well, I mean, maybe you haven't thought about seeing a movie in the evening, but you see.
Exactly. You now have choices galore, right? Easier selection and identification. All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. So how do they enter the market? What do they start doing? I'll have to help you on this one. Right. They started by shipping DVDs. Okay? Now, you've got to look at the industry. So, as the DVD, the cassettes, the VHS cassettes were on the decline, the DVDs were emerging. Okay? And they were able to produce DVDs on demand. So there was no longer a shortage of movies. Okay? So they could print the DVDs as quickly as customers needed and ship it to the customers. Right? How have they sustained themselves in the market today? Internet? Tell me about internet. What are they doing?
You change the distribution channels.
How? Okay, what have they done? What is the new technology they're using? You have two customers, but you're not allowed to answer. Tell me about digital support. Okay.
You don't have to.
I'm sorry? No physical object. Good. So? Yeah, who said the word? Streaming. Exactly. They have now sustained their market through streaming. Streaming. Okay? So they started off as the DVD, and now they are streaming, totally dematerialized. Totally. Okay? Where is Blockbuster? In the museum. Things of the past. All right? Two guys and a vision to change the industry. Two guys. All right? Probably never heard of this one. No, you never heard of this one, right? Again, two guys, this time 1998. You know, we've probably all got kids that were born before this was created, right? At least I have one kid that was born before this was created. Okay. What's their value proposition?
Access to information.
Access to information?
Relevant information.
Relevant information? What happened before them?
Speed of access.
Okay, speed of access. What was the situation before Google came along?
We didn't even know that the information was there.
Right, we didn't know information was available, or we had difficulties getting access to the information, right? We didn't know, and we had a lot of difficulty to access the information. What else we needed to do? Right, but I'm saying before Google, what happened? What did we have to do? Go to the library, exactly. Go to libraries, right? We had to go to libraries to go look for the information, right? This was the behavior. The information was probably there, but you had to go and get it, okay? The search engines came along, and they brought the information to you, the user, right? You remember things like Netscape, all right, Alta Vista, those guys, they brought information to you. Good. But what did then Google do? So there's that shift. We're bringing the information to the user. What did Google see as a problem?
They put a learning machine in that, so that can see what you like to search and bring more information that you are like.
Right. Okay. I'll take that for the sustaining part.
Okay.
I'll take that for sustaining, right? But what did they do as their value proposition?
Avoid advertisement.
Okay, avoiding advertisements. Okay. Simplicity. What else?
Like the other search engine,
Personalized search. Okay.
they made information ranked by order of priority.
Right. They rank the information. Okay. The things which you had to do yourself before, they're now doing it for you. And in addition, how are they sustaining themselves today? By
They bring the material to you.
okay, well they bring materials today, but what is Google doing today? Google is it just a search engine company today?
Internet everywhere for everybody?
Right.
Or telecom?
Right. Google is now using our behavior, our data, to create new products and services which we will use. You've heard of things like Google Ads, right? AdSense, Google Analytics. What do you think that's for? To create the products and services of the future. Okay? Because there's the behavior. Google tracks our behavior. Okay? Again, two guys thought of how we can change the chaos. Take advantage of the chaos. Let me give you a little one that's a little closer to home, maybe. It's a little more recent. 2008. A guy in San Francisco called Brian Chesky. What did he do? He realized that people wanted to travel to these famous cities, but maybe the budgets are not as big as the cities. All right? In other words, they're on a shoestring budget. So what if I had an apartment in a nice location and I have a big sitting room or a spare room that I'm not using? Okay? Can I see my apartment as a service? Right? When they started, and if you ever read the story, it's interesting, they didn't have beds at the time. He bought an air mattress, all right? An air mattress, and put it in the citizen's room. That's how they got the word air. That's how they got the thing air. Air. Right? Because it was an air mattress on the floor. In addition, so it was an air bed and breakfast. Air bed and breakfast. So he used the existing space within his apartment to convert it into a revenue generating offer. Okay. One guy in an apartment looking at his environment and saying, I've got potential here. What is this company today? The biggest hotel property company in the world, and it doesn't own a single hotel. It doesn't own a single property. How many of you ever stayed in an Airbnb somewhere? All right, you all used it, right? The biggest hotel company in the world, and it doesn't own a single hotel. Why? Why is this? why this guy could come up with this idea and make it so successful.
Just being an intermediate role. Putting a potential customer with a potential provider in contact.
Right? He recognized there was a need. He saw the chaos in the environment. I'm going to be in Silicon Valley in about 4 days. I have a plane at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Okay? The cost of my hotel room, where I'm going to be staying in San Francisco, $350 a night. Luckily, I've got friends, so I'll be spending some time with friends. But at $350 a night, that's not for everyone. Unfortunately, I'm going to be in Silicon Valley at the same time there's the Super Bowl, so there's a little bit of market fluctuation in terms of prices and availability. But the high cost of hotels is prohibitive for some customers. Okay? And finding a comfortable, acceptable alternative may be a value proposition for many. Okay? So this is how the Airbnb started. As a result of this, Airbnb today is poised to become the new standard for sharing services. Okay? And we saw things like Uber come along, we saw things like Lyft come along, okay? Because we now started the sharing economy in our industry, okay? So the same chaos, now we see new potential. So if we look across those examples, we see a series of innovations. And these innovations were born because the founders were able to perceive the chaos very differently. The founders were able to see the uncertainty as potential. The founders had within themselves the capacity and the capability to change the industry. Okay? So what we saw, you change behaviors. You can change the processes. You can change the sales cycle. You can change the buying cycle. You change the value chain. You can change the value stream. Okay? In fact, you can pretty much change everything you see in your environment. You can pretty much change everything you see. So what we do with you in our MBA, we try to teach you methodologies. We try to share methodologies with you. We try to teach you more about due diligence. In my own classes, I tell the students I'm more concerned about the key failure factors than the key success factors. I'd like you to know and identify how you can get it wrong and take and identify measures to correct it, to prevent it from happening, than saying you are the best and you will succeed. Okay? I challenge you to innovate, to think outside of the box, to think differently, to remove the paradigms that you've developed and embrace new paradigms. I'd like you to connect the dots, okay? So, just like Chesky did, don't see your apartment as an apartment, but how can you see this apartment as a service? Okay? I'll challenge you. If you're in the real estate industry, we sell houses, right? What if we change the way we sold houses? How will that change the real estate industry? Look at our post offices, the way they're changing today. Look at our banks. The concept, the notion of the bank is changing. Right? When you look at things like Zipcar and Bluely and EasyCar, you see that they've been able to connect the dots because they took a business model from a traditional industry and applied it to another industry. Okay? Connect the dots. I also challenge you not just to change the rules of the game, but change the game itself. Change the game. Change the way the game is played. All right? Change the way the game is played. When you do entrepreneurship in the MBA, you've got to get comfortable with risk. Risk equals opportunity. Risk equals opportunity. Okay? And remember that in our environment in the 21st century, customers are empowered. They're educated. They make educated choices. Okay? We don't own our customers anymore. Okay? Customers make educated choices today. In many circumstances, they have access to the same information you can have as a company even before you can get it. Okay? So the customer is empowered. In the MBA, we get you to change the outlook. We want you to change your perception. We want you to change the way you see things. We want to build confidence in your capacity and your capabilities. Okay? We want to build confidence in yourself. We develop your mindset, your skill set, your tool sets, and your behaviors. We try to shape them. Okay? We try to shape them for you. In essence, we try to unleash the intrapreneur within yourselves so that you can choose to be an entrepreneur. Okay? We try to liberate that intrapreneur, that energy, that motivation, that desire within you so that you can become or choose to be an entrepreneur. And we have lots of methodologies we use. We teach you how to identify the pain, identify the need, question the assumptions. What are the assumptions in the existing models? How can we change those assumptions? Okay? We analyze the activities and processes. What in there can we innovate? Let's take a Lego approach to existing businesses. Okay? Decompose the business and change the Lego. All right, change the processes, change the activities. Reframe the existing relationships. Conceive new ways of the relationships. Okay? Create new hypotheses and test them. What if we were to do it this way? What if I could change it this way? What if my customers saw it this way? And you implement. In essence, we will work with you on a number of traits and characteristics to making you the entrepreneur. And there's this notion of the internal locus of control. When we talk to the intrapreneur, we talk to this locus of control within yourselves. The attitude to risk and failure, how comfortable you are with that. You embrace it. And the mindset, the opportunistic mindset. There's your yin and your yang. Okay? They go together. And what we want to do is to work on several traits as the entrepreneur. We want to work on your vision. We want to work on your resilience. We want to work on your teamwork skills, your innovation, your passion, your leadership, your integrity, your quality, your flexibility, your customer focus. Okay? So we try to develop your capacity in a number of dimensions in order to help you be the entrepreneur you want to be. Okay? Because we know that uncertainty brings opportunity. Uncertainty brings opportunity. You are your key to success. It's not the professor, it's not the methodology, it's not the tool, it's not the framework, it's not the approach, it is you. Okay? And remember one of the first slides. Managers tend to blame other people for things. We live in a messy world, a chaotic world, an uncertain world, an unstable world, a very volatile world. And you've got to learn to develop the filters to manage that chaos. Okay? And you owe it to yourself to do so. Our job is to help you develop your capacity. At the end of the day, it's you who develop your own capacity. As entrepreneurs, you see opportunities where others see problems. You think differently. You act differently. You breathe differently. You live differently, right? You see opportunities where others see problems. So I'd like to conclude with a little bit of a challenge. As you contemplate this journey of an entrepreneur, do not limit your challenges. Do not limit your challenges. Instead, challenge your own limits. Challenge your limits. Develop your capacity. Okay? We know in a risk mitigation strategy, you probably want to reduce your challenges. Okay? You try to limit the challenges. However, in the entrepreneurial mindset, we encourage you to challenge the limits. Very different. And on the humorous side, I like this little quote that says, "What's entrepreneurship? It's living a few years of your life like most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't." There's something about that passion. There's something about being the entrepreneur. There's something about that success that's contagious. So, work hard. Don't sleep a lot. But create the venture you want to create. Be the entrepreneur you want to be. Spend a few years of your life living like most people wouldn't want. They probably think, "Oh no, that's not for me." Because chances are you'll be spending the rest of your life living the way they would like, but can't do it. All right?